Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Brian, and I'm co-founder and owner at Sadhana Yoga School, and I'm excited to share with you today um, some things about the yoga profession in general. Uh, I've been involved with the yoga world for the last, I guess, 11 years. I started really in 2015 as a yoga teacher, and um, then started helping out with yoga teacher training programs, and then co-founded a yoga school, and then again co-founded another yoga school. So fairly familiar with the yoga profession, and I guess both presently and how it's evolved over time. So I'm just going to share with you several topics today, um, and I'll go through kind of as quickly as I can, just giving you the basics so that you have that to understand. So I'm going to talk about yoga certification and what that means, talk about Yoga Alliance and how to register with them and when you may or may not want to do that. Talk about insurance as a yoga teacher, so this would be professional liability insurance. And we'll also talk about waivers and also taxes. So again, welcome. My name is Brian Russell. I work with Sadhana Yoga School, and we have yoga teacher training programs around the world. Currently, we have them in the US, in Costa Rica, India, Bali, Fiji. We did one in Greece, and we are probably going to be expanding more locations in Central America as well. So, yoga teacher certification. So certification is given from a school, or really any organization can give a certification, and what it means is kind of like this certificate of completion. And so after the program, you get this certificate of completion, which is called a certificate. And it just kind of communicates to whoever you show it to that you completed the program. So any organization can have a certification program, and lots of yoga schools have certification programs. The industry standard has come to be a 200-hour yoga certification program. And this is 200 hours of class time. So yeah, it's a fairly long program. The format we run most commonly is a 24-day immersion program. So it's about 10 hours a day of class time. And then there's a day off here or there. But you're in class a lot, so it adds up to 200 hours. And that's kind of become the industry standard in order to learn the basics, in order to teach yoga safely and effectively, both on the physical level, then also on the mental and on the spiritual level too, because there's more than just moving the body. We're also moving the energy in the physical body that then affects our life entirely. So certification, that's what certification means. There can be certifications that are shorter than 200 hours. There can be certifications that are longer than 200 hours. Our program is a 200-hour certification. Yeah. And so Yoga Alliance, Yoga Alliance has kind of come to be the main kind of, I don't want to say watchdog, but the main organization in yoga that kind of helps the industry organize itself. It's a voluntary thing. They're a nonprofit. They're not a government organization or anything. And we can actually go to their website. I'll get it pulled up here. And it's yogaalliance.org. You can look at it. And they're a yoga registry, basically, is their main function. And what they do is they allow, so I'll get the screen share. They allow you to that's our website. we go. I want to make sure that this will show. Yeah. So here's yogaalliance.org. So they have 75,000 yoga teachers and schools registered with them, as you can see from that first banner. And they're basically, you can register as a teacher. They also register schools or studios. They call them schools. So we're a registered yoga school. So we submit our curriculum to them and they check it. And if it meets the guidelines, then they can say we can register as a school. And then so if you graduate from a registered yoga school, you're able to register as a registered yoga teacher with them as an RYT. So then everyone who graduates from our school can, if they want to, right after graduation, the next day, you can upload our certificate that we give you and put in your information, and there's a registration fee with them. I think it's $55 a year for in the US, or a little bit more for international. But yeah, so registration with Yoga Alliance, as I said, is voluntary. And where it can be useful for you is if you're working for a larger organization, then they will want you to register in order to kind of prove that you're a competent yoga teacher. So for example, like at the hospital here in Keene, New Hampshire, where I am, they would want me to be registered with Yoga Alliance because the person at the hospital, they don't know how to assess if I'm a good yoga teacher. So they're going to, both that person and the hospital's insurance company is going to want them to do some due diligence in order to, ensure that the yoga teacher is qualified to teach. So they're going to default to Yoga Alliance and say, if you can register with Yoga Alliance, then we'll say you're okay. So that may be true with kind of any large organization. Yeah, it also comes into play when if you do want to get insurance for teaching. Most of the insurance companies will want you to register with Yoga Alliance. It's not true for all of them, but most of them. So kind of when you're in any large organization, they will want you to register. But then it also may provide some amount of credibility to the general public. My sense is most students don't really know about Yoga Alliance. So if you say you're RYT 200, it's not necessarily going to mean anything to them. Maybe it looks good, so even if they don't know what it means, they still think it looks good. That could be the case. I think a lot of yoga studios will want you to be registered as well, because that will help to boost their credential as a studio, and then it's also a way for them to know that I don't know, that you graduated from school. They could look at your certificate as well. So yeah, to register, it's quite easy. You would just go to, I guess it would be just to join in the upper right corner, and you create an account with them, join their community, and then you can click through to the designations. And then what you would want to do is you'd register. It would be this RYT 200 over here, and this is what you would be able to get. I guess you can apply to register right there. So this may be a better way to get into it. Either way is probably fine. Yeah, and then you just pay the fee and upload your certificate. Another thing with them is they have a designation called a registered yoga teacher, or ERYT 200. So that's over here. And that basically allows you to say that you're experienced registered yoga teacher. So if you have, let's see what their requirement is. I always forget if it's 1,000 or 2,000. Yeah, so if you have 1,000 hours teaching experience since you've been at since you've completed the RYS 200, then you can register as an ERYT. Oh, there's also at least a 2-year limit. So 2 years and 1,000 hours, and you can be called an experienced registered yoga teacher. So basically just keep track of the hours that you teach on a spreadsheet or on the Yoga Alliance website. It's all on the honor system, but so if you teach a class at the YMCA 1 hour a week for 10 weeks, that's 10 hours, or yeah, just adds up like that. So yeah, so next thing, let me go back here. Yeah, so next thing, just cruising through. So we touched on certification and Yoga Alliance and kind of how they're connected, basically. a registered yoga school provide you a certificate of completion, and then you use that to register with Yoga Alliance. If you go to a school that's not registered with Yoga Alliance, you cannot register as a RIT 200. So if that's important to you, make sure you go to a school that is registered with Yoga Alliance, because otherwise you won't be able to. Now there's a lot of good schools out there that don't register. It's not like it guarantees to be a good school, but it does. I think it does help toward that goal. Thinking about waivers and liability release forms. So yeah, this is all kind of like the paperwork of yoga. So it's good to have a waiver if you're teaching yoga that your students sign. Or if you're teaching at a studio, the studio will probably have a waiver for the students to sign. And it's just like one extra protection and also one extra form of communication with the students, that basically saying, you know, you're coming to yoga class, we're gonna do the best job we can to provide a safe and effective class, but then you have to take responsibility, and the real responsibility really does lie within you as a student to make sure that you have a safe class and to not do anything if you feel that it's not safe for you, even if the teacher says it, that you need to take that responsibility, and the teacher cannot be held responsible if you get injured in their class. The studio cannot be held responsible if you get injured in class. And I guess I preface it saying it's mainly just the extra communication. It does help, legally a little bit, in that if people sign a waiver, they may think that they can't then sue you if you get injured. But the reality is, from the lawyers that I talked to, you can sue anyone that you want for any reason, and you can't, really waive your right to sue them. And I guess as a teacher, somebody can't waive their right, waive your responsibility to provide a safe and effective class. You can't be reckless. If you're reckless and teach a class in a way that is totally unsafe, according to kind of the industry standards of yoga, then you're going to be held accountable for that. And people can't just sign that away. So just know that it's good in that it's a communication, but then it'll also limit people's maybe incentive or to sue you, but it won't get rid of it entirely. Yeah, so this waivers or liability release forms. Another thing this form can do if you're teaching on your own is you can use it as kind of a registration form or intake form, so you can get people's name and phone number and email on there, in addition to them signing the waiver. And then you all start building up your email list, and you can start doing that. So it can kind of be an additional benefit of doing this form with every student, of collecting their information. Yeah. One thing I didn't talk about yet is insurance. So I guess, yeah, very much related to waivers. So basically the idea is, if something goes wrong in class and somebody thinks that it's your fault, if they get injured or harmed, then they have a right to sue you. So the way the US works is, if you injure somebody, then they can sue you for the damages that you've done to them. And professional liability insurance provides some protection there, so that if you were found guilty, then the insurance company would pay. In most cases, the insurance company would also pay for the legal suit. So they would pay for you to have a lawyer to defend you in this case, and then they would do any payout up to whatever the limits are. A lot of times it'll be $1 million or $2 million, or sometimes it's 500,000, probably $1 million, $2 million, $4 million, because sometimes with medical bills, or if there is a permanent damage to somebody, then the payout could be quite large, with a permanent injury that would last the rest of their life. So it could be a large impact there. There are several organizations that offer insurance just for yoga teachers, and I My sense is that those rates are much better than if you go with your own insurance company. But you can certainly talk with whoever insures your car or your house or any other insurance that you have and see what it would cost to insure you as a professional yoga teacher. But likely you're going to want to go with one of the ones that does insure for yoga teachers. So Yoga Alliance actually offers pretty good insurance now. So if you register with Yoga Alliance, you can get insurance through them as well. Yoga Journal has insurance for yoga teachers, and then there's a couple other organizations. You can Google yoga teacher insurance and you'll find them. And it ranges from, let's say, $150 to $250 a year. So it's not that much if you teach yoga regularly. If you're just teaching one class here or there, then it would be a lot. But I would highly recommend if you want to make yoga as part of your career to get professional liability insurance for yourself. Yeah. And then that would carry with you wherever you teach inside the US or, yeah. So if you get, typically wherever you get the insurance, that would be where it would be valid. So if you're in Canada or if you're in Australia or if you're in UK, whatever insurance you get would probably be just valid in that country. I'm mostly just familiar with the US, and the companies I've talked to, they don't insure for multiple countries. So it's a little bit harder to find that. I don't know what it would cost to get kind of more of an international coverage. Yeah, so so kind of adding the things, you know, registering with Yoga Alliance, getting yoga insurance, professional liability insurance, having a waiver, also an intake form. And then the last thing we're going to talk about is taxes and the fact that most yoga teachers are self-employed. So the idea is that if you work for somebody and as an employee, then they're going to be paying some taxes to the government, and then they're also going to be withholding taxes for you. So they're going to be withholding taxes for you. So if you then, sorry, just lost my train of thought. On the other side, this happens with some studios, but a lot of studios, or if you're teaching a class just on your own, you're going to be what's called self-employed as an independent contractor. So this would be the case if you have a class in the park, and let's say your donation base, you ask for $10 donation, and people donate $10, and you have 10 students, so it's $100 that you make that class. There's no employer there taking out the taxes out of that and giving their portion to the government and your portion to the government. So what happens is at the end of the year, actually on a quarterly basis, you should be filing these quarterly, but most people kind of get away with it at the end of the year. You can talk with your accountant or bookkeeper about the details about setting up quarterly payments, but at least be ready at the end of the year to pay self-employment tax. And there's about 15% self-employment tax, and then there's your regular income tax. So even if you wouldn't pay your regular ordinary income tax, you would still have to pay self-employment tax. So if you're used to not paying taxes because you've qualified and you don't make enough to pay taxes, you would still have to pay some taxes, the self-employment tax. So if you were to compare making $50, let's say, at a studio as an employee, that $50 is actually your full take-home pay. You're going to pay income tax off that $50, but you wouldn't have to pay self-employment tax because the business, your employer, would be paying that. If you make $50 as an independent contractor, on the other hand, you're going to have to pay that 15% self-employment tax. So really, 15% of $50 is $7.50. So really, you're making $42.50. Then you need to pay your ordinary income tax after that. So just know that if you're employed as an employee, you're going to be better off tax-wise than if you're employed as an independent contractor, if you're making the same amount of money. So just keep that in mind as if you're have income coming in, It's all self-reported, you know, unless you get audited. All our taxes are self-reported. You can choose if you want to report it or not. I tend to, sleep well when I know that things are done the way that they're supposed to be done. So if something went wrong, then it wouldn't go wrong. But just like if you work at a restaurant and you're a waitress or waiter there, then you have to pay, or you're supposed to pay taxes on all the tips. Or if you're doing babysitting, you're supposed to pay taxes on the income that you make. If you're really any income that you make, you're supposed to pay taxes on that. So that's self-employment tax if you're not working as an employee, and if that money's not being taxed through that business. So I guess the main thing is, just be aware of that. And then something else to help you think about how to move through this is to keep track of all of your income that you make. So each month or each week, what classes you took or you taught and what income came in for each class. And then also you can keep track of your expenses. So you can keep track of a lot of business expenses. So if you're renting space at a studio, let's say, or if you need to buy a new yoga mat, let's say, or if you're driving somewhere just for work, that you could count that as a business expense. If your yoga teacher training program can certainly be a yoga expense, and all the travel expenses related to that, because it's professional development and education. Yeah, so if you're going to yoga workshops, your teacher training program is great, a big amount, and then you don't have to pay taxes on that. It can really kind of in effect make it much more affordable if you think about it that way, because otherwise you need to pay taxes on that $5,000, and all of a sudden you're saving kind of 15% because you don't have to pay taxes on that. It is actually real savings back in your pocket if you keep track of the expenses. Yeah, so keep track at least on a piece of paper, and then at the end of the year you can talk with your accountant or bookkeeper. Probably better off talking with them before the end of the year and figure out what you need to keep track of for them, and then you can hand all that over, and then they'll be able to do that self-employment tax. Schedule C it's called, or CEZ, as a self-employed. And I think that's the main things that we had to go over. So let me see here what we're going on.